a fire company or a cricket club? Would the northern states help defend the southern against a slave uprising? Would the South come to the aid of the North in the event of a foreign invasion? None of the answers was obvious. Local officials were incompetent or worse. Congress seemed little better. Full democracy repelled virtually all the men who were charged with making it work. The people should have as little to do as may be about the government, Connecticut Senator Roger Sherman warned. They lack information and are constantly liable to be misled. James Jackson, a congressman from Georgia, was alleged to have once waved his pistols at visitors in the public gallery and threatened to shoot them if they made too much noise. Jackson at least took his job seriously. During debates, many of his colleagues could typically be seen reading newspapers and exchanging bawdy limericks with one another. Of 86 senators who served during the 1790s, 1/3 would depart in boredom or disgust before their terms expired. Only a small percentage of the country's 4 million inhabitants had any role in political life. Just under 700,000 were slaves, who had no rights to liberty or property at all. And it would be a generation before any woman was heard to express her opinions in a political forum. About half of all free white men were disenfranchised by property qualifications, and many others lived too far from polling places to actually vote. In the elections to select delegates to the state conventions that debated ratification of the Constitution, only about 160,000 people had voted, just 1/25 of the population. Rules for participation in government varied widely from state to state. In Pennsylvania, all taxpayers were eligible to hold office. In Virginia, the requirement was ownership of at least 25 acres of improved land. And in South Carolina, candidates had to prove that they were worth a minimum of $8,500 to stand for a seat. In some states, presidential electors were selected by popular vote. In others, by the state legislature, and in at least one, New Jersey, by the governor and his cabinet. Inside Congress and out, there was a pervasive sense of anxiety that at any moment the whole jerry-built system might break down and shatter. The threat of rebellion and coups was in the air. Everyone remembered how, in June 1783, 400 soldiers with fixed bayonets had mobbed Pennsylvania Governing Council at Independence Hall in Philadelphia, in a dispute with the state over unpaid wages, and how the National Congress, gathered in the chamber below, had ignominiously stalked off to New Jersey. Debtors burned courthouses in Virginia. In Massachusetts, Revolutionary War veterans, embittered by high taxes and oligarchic rule, had taken up arms against the government and were barely prevented from seizing the arsenal at Springfield by an army of hastily assembled militia. Thomas Jefferson feared that the states, these separate independencies, like the petty states of Greece, would be eternally at war with each other and would become at length the mere partisans and satellites of the leading powers of Europe. Then there was the question of the capital. Washington, D.C. is today as much a site of national pilgrimage as it is a seat of government. For school children disembarking by the hundreds of thousands each year along the Mall, and for millions of other Americans and foreign visitors, to travel to Washington is to seek some kind of communion with the secular civic religion that is embodied in its temple-like buildings and the democratic institutions they enshrine. Viewed from the top of the Washington Monument, the sepulchral monuments to past presidents and to wars won and lost, the massive government buildings, museums, foreign embassies, and the taut axis of Republican power formed by the Capitol and the White House, shape a cityscape that emanates both national self-confidence and imperial grandeur like no other in the world. It was not always